Hello and welcome to the Bike Show once again. This week we're coming, as you can see, from GPS for Africa, a shop that I have to tell you is the best destination in the country for adventure accessories and products. And that's kind of handy because our first test is of a very important new model from Honda that just happens to be an adventure bike.
We've not been terribly kind to Honda on the bike show. Well, more specifically, I haven't been terribly kind to Honda on the bike show in recent years, just because of the lack of anything exciting and new coming from them. But that's all changing because not only is there a new bike, they also chose South Africa for the world launch of the bike. Now, Don, you were there. Exactly what bike are we talking about?
We're talking about the brand new Africa Twin. And for this model, it's completely different, completely new. First time they brought out a new Africa Twin since 2003. Well, in fact, they ended the last one in 2003. Now they brought out a brand new one. And some things have changed. First of all, the last Africa Twin was called an XRV. This one is called a CRF, which is interesting because CRF is the name they give to their off-road bikes.
Yeah.
So CRF1000L. CRF means off-road, and the L means, well, road legal.
Now, before we get into the details of the bike, obviously there was some Honda bigwigs there from Japan and Europe. Is there any particular reason why there's this been this sudden sort of
Honda got a new CEO this year. And the last one, look, he wasn't much of a bike fan. He was more interested in building little crap boxes for Thailand, you know. This new one apparently is. He's a big bike fan. He likes motorbikes. And, you know, when you see the engineers and the people there, I mean, okay, the CEO wasn't there himself, you know, but when you see the engineers and the marketing people, they all looked very sort of upbeat, very kind of happy to be there. So maybe better things to come from Honda. Well,
let's hope so. Now, let's look at the new bike. The old Africa Twin was a V-twin.
Yes.
Are we still looking at a V-twin here?
No, we're not looking at a V-twin. We're looking at a parallel twin. Honda, again, haven't been the most excited. It pushes 94 horsepower and 98 Newton meters of torque. Now, when you're talking, you know, 160 horsepower KTMs and Ducatis, that doesn't say a lot. But what they have done is made it sort of, again, more off-roady. So the crank is a 270-degree crank, like a Super Tenere and all those kind of things. So it kind of has two, you know, sort of fires one cylinder right off the other. So almost like a single, actually. And the idea behind that is they want to try to give it that pulse, you know, make you feel like you're riding a proper off-roader, you know, like the big off-road single.
So it's kind of got that low-down torque.
Low-down torque, more of a pulsy sort of feeling. And you look at the whole bike itself, it just looks off-roady. Everything about it is off-road. It doesn't look like an adventure bike or a road bike turned to try and make it look more off-roady. This looks like a proper off-road bike, made sort of slightly bigger and more comfortable.
Okay. And now let's look at the gearbox, because there's quite some interesting stuff here. There's a manual and a DCT option.
Manual and DCT. The manual is kind of weird, actually, because if I were going to be riding this bike only on the tar roads, like tar mountain passes, I would take a manual. If I were riding it off-road, I would take a DCT.
Now that's interesting, because the DCT hasn't always been that great.
They've completely redone it this year, redesigned the whole DCT system, and it's a lot better. It's a hell of a lot better. In fact, on this model, you've even got a special button you push called a G button. I don't know what G stands for.
G-spot.
G-spot. There we go. It's the G-spot. You push the G-spot, and it tells you you're riding off-road. And then when you're going down a hill or up a hill or anything like that, it can actually tell that you need a lower gear, so it keeps it at a lower gear. And it's also, I mean, it's got 4 different modes of automatic. You've got the D, S1, S2, S3. Each one is varying in sporty ability. And then it's also got a full manual. So if you need full manual, you just push the M button, and then you change gears either on the handlebars, and there's an option of a gear change on the foot.
But so the gear change is an option, so it doesn't necessarily come with a gear change.
It doesn't necessarily come. You do pay a bit, you get it as an option, and there's no clutch.
Okay. Let's look at the chassis. Is it a brand new chassis from front to back?
Brand new chassis. Now, this one, again, they're focused on off-road. It's got a 21-inch front wheel, an 18-inch rear wheel, which is, well, that's just basically motocross. It's also got the most suspension travel of any adventure bike. I mean, you can see they've really gone for this. It also weighs slightly less. The standard non-DCT version with ABS is 232 kilograms, which is lighter than all the other big adventure bikes except the V-Strom. The DCT version is 242, which, okay, is a bit more. But honestly, you know what, when you ride it, you sit on the thing. I mean, I'm 4'2", and I can put both feet on the floor.
Well, I was going to say this, because, I mean, you're saying it's got the most suspension travel, so it must be huge. It must be as tall as an elephant.
I don't know how they did this, but no. When you actually sit on the seat, I sat on it in the standard seating position. You can put it lower and higher. I could put both feet on the floor, which was sort of weird for me because I'm used to kind of dabbing my toes like that.
And I believe there's a separate option for a higher seat, as much as the adjustments.
People are 9'4" like you can put a higher seat on, and it's got a higher screen option also. So
okay, let's look at the obviously modern bikes are all like the electronics. Has the Honda got all these same electronics?
Yeah, for once Honda actually put electronics on their bike. It's got traction control and ABS. There is a non-ABS version available. But the best part about this, 3 traction control options, plus there's ABS, you can turn off the back wheel.
But not the front?
Not the front, you can turn off the back wheel, which is really all you need. But the best part about it is that when you're riding, there's buttons. There's a button for ABS over there, and on the handlebar here, there's a button for traction control.
No scrolling through a menu on the screen.
Through, no subsection 4, section D, paragraph 3, all of that rubbish. You push a button and the traction control changes.
And you can do that on the fly?
On the fly, hold the button down and it goes away.
That's pretty cool. Look, talking about the instruments, is it a fancy digital thing, or is it pretty simple still?
It is a digital unit, but nothing kind of full screen, full color, all that kind of rubbish. It's just straight up what you need to know. It's all there, and it works.
Brakes? Obviously, yes, it has brakes.
Yes.
What make are they?
They are the Nissan radial calipers, and I can't say anything went wrong. I mean, I think I stopped every single time, even on the slippery stuff. And you turn off the back ABS and skid the back wheel around, which is good fun. And a lot of other people don't offer that option, which is, it's quite something, especially for Honda. I mean, you'd think Honda would be like, no, ABS has to be there.
Yeah. Now, okay, the launch was there's a tar day and an off-road day.
Yes.
Was it better in any one particular application, or?
Yeah, I fear, look, 94 horsepower on dirt is brilliant. 94 horsepower on tar, look, for the cruising sort of people, who don't like breaking speed limits and don't like doing all this thing. In other words, not us. They would enjoy that kind of thing. And there are a lot of those. I mean, I see a lot of people still riding around on KLR 650s and those kind of bikes. And they never break speed limits, and whenever they can, they go off-road. And they're going to absolutely love this bike. This is a bike for them. It's exactly what they want.
Now, looking at the pictures, it's quite apparent that there's absolutely no crash protection on any of these bikes. Is there provision for it, and is it optional extra in the catalogue? Yeah,
there is an option for crash protection, but those standard bikes we had did not have it. And I wouldn't suggest falling off without it, because it all just seems to be plastics and things like that.
So that's the thing, there's a lot of plastics which could get stuffed
Weirdly, none. We had 10 journalists, no one crashed. Even on the off-roady sections, no one even fell over, which is weird.
So you're saying that that's because the balance of the bike is so good, or you were just all lucky?
No, we weren't all lucky, no. Put it this way, the talent definitely wasn't there. I'm going to have to put a lot of it down to the bikes. Again, it just does. They feel small and very sort of nimble. And I mean, I think a lot of the bigger off-road bikes would have definitely had problems.
So, of course, the $64,000 question is price.
Price. Well, it depends what Zuma does with the Rand. The bike's only due here in April.
Okay.
But they say it's going to be somewhere between 150 and 165,000 Rand. Obviously, depending which option you take. The DCT is probably more expensive, the ABS is less expensive, and the standard model is even less. But it sort of fits nicely between the sort of middleweight bikes and the heavyweight bikes. What's that in boxing? You've got heavyweights and middleweights. We
actually asked Matt this earlier, it's a cruiserweight, which doesn't mean it's the weight of a Harley.
It's not a Harley-Davidson, no. Okay.
Okay, but I mean, that is putting it ahead of some more obvious rivals like the Triumph Tiger 800. How does it stack up against a bike like that?
That's where it kind of gets interesting, because the horsepower is very similar. The Tiger weighs less, but then the Honda's got more torque. The Honda's, I think, slightly better built. But that is actually a tough one. I was thinking that as I was riding it, if I was riding a Tiger, how would that feel right now? And to be really honest, I think we're going to have to wait until we get both of them and give it a go.
Okay, so we've criticised Honda in the past for being just asleep, basically. Their reputation's on the line here. Have they done enough to sort of start waking up people's interest as well?
Yeah, they have it, but in a very different way, because instead of saying, right, let's give it 1 billion horsepower, they've kind of said, let's build a bike that can go somewhere else. You know what I mean? So in certain circumstances, when you're riding it down the side of a cliff, I mean, I would have a TomTom heart rate of 5. I genuinely would. My only problem is, for me personally, and I realize a lot of people are not like this, if I had to ride that bike every day, I might get a little bit bored. But I mean, this is now riding through town, through traffic. I would ask for a little bit more. However, I know that most people are probably going to say it's plenty for them.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think it's well done to Honda.